power has really been created due to the pandemic and everything that entails. But everything I'm going to go over today can be used not just during this tough time of the pandemic, election, everything that's going on this year, but could be used for any tough or challenging situation. So I'm going to put the PowerPoint up so you can see it full screen. If anybody is having, excuse me, any problem seeing it, just let me know. The chat board is open. So it was open, can't see it, but okay. If anybody has any problem seeing anything, just unmute yourself and let me know. And I'm going to get started. So welcome, everybody. So the first screen you'll see here is an exercise that I really love to give out. I have my clients do it all the time, and it's such an effective tool to use during a tough time, a struggle, a challenging time, whatever you're going through. So what I have my clients do is whenever you get a chance, take out a piece of paper and pen, because it's so much more therapeutic when we write things out old school, just like really write it out. And what I want you to do is when you have, 15, 20 minutes to yourself, is sit down and write out a tough time in your life that you have gone through. Doesn't matter what that tough time was, doesn't matter when it was. It could be an illness, an injury, it could be a loss of a loved one, a loss of a relationship. It could be, something like what we're going through, a pandemic, 9/11, a natural disaster. It doesn't matter what it was, and it doesn't matter when it was. It doesn't matter if it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago. What's important about this is that when we get into a really bad time in our lives, a really tough time, we tend to get so wrapped up in the struggle, in the pain, the anxiety, the fear, that we can't see outside of it. And we tend to forget that we have been through so much other tough times in our lives. And not only did we survive them, but we thrived through them. And we forget how much of our strengths, so much of the routines or different rituals we started to get us through those tough times. So when you go back into a tough time and you really look through it, it's that hindsight 2020. It actually will give you all those tools that we're looking for, right? When you always hear us therapists say, like, when a tough time hits, go through that emotional toolbox and pull out the tools and the resources you need. But a lot of times I'll hear from clients, I don't know what are the resources. I don't know what my strengths are, or what I use to get through anything. And that is normal when you're in the midst of something. But by doing this exercise, you can go back and find out all those resources and tools that you need, and then use them in not just today's situation, but any situation that comes your way. And remembering this, that change is the only constant in the world. So we're always going to have situations happening. Life is like a roller coaster ride. There's plenty of ups and downs, but remembering change is the only constant, and remembering that everything is temporary is so important. Because when we're feeling a lack of control, like in this kind of situation where we feel like we don't have much control of anything, because we don't have control of the pandemic, when a vaccine will hit, what the second wave will look like, the election, everything that's going on in our lives, when we feel that way, we feel that lack of control, it's hard to think about, what do I have power over? What do I have? And when you do this exercise, you start realizing the strengths, the quality traits, the positive attributes, what you used and what's still there for you. Because whatever you used even 10 years ago, 20 years ago, is still part of who you are and can be used today or tomorrow. So I want you to think about, write out your story, whatever your story is, whatever that tough time is. Now, for me, I use a story of about 9-10 years ago. I got really sick. I was doing a webinar like this. Well, it was in person, a workshop. And all of a sudden in the middle of it, I couldn't swallow. Just couldn't swallow it at all, not even the water. No idea that, what was going on. Went to the doctor the next day, assumed I must have had strep or something, even though I didn't really feel sick. 2 months later, no one can figure out what's wrong with me. I'm 28 pounds thinner. I still can't swallow water, can't swallow my own saliva. I'm going in every week to the hospital for feeding tubes to get, nutrients. No one can figure it out. It takes them 8 months to figure out what's wrong with me. In the midst of that, somewhere around 2.5, 3 months, they think it's ALS and they send me home thinking I have Lou Gehrig's. So I'm obviously a mess. Finally, 8 months later, we figure out what's wrong with me. I have this very incurable illness. And basically, I have what basically the easiest way is I have third degree burns on my throat and I burned my throat shut, which also caused all this nerve damage, which is permanent. So it's kind of like a stroke. I can't feel foods. I choke on foods. It's a very tough illness. I'm stuck with it. It's precancerous. And this is the story I use because that was one of the roughest years of my life. And when I wrote out my story, which I did somewhere, I think it was about May or June, because the first month or two of this, if you remember, we kept thinking this won't last. It's going to be 2 weeks, a month or so. We'll flatten the curve and then we'll move on. Who knew that, 8 months later, we'd be here preparing again for a second wave, right? So somewhere around May or June, I used this exercise because I was starting to have, a little bit of a meltdown of what was going on. And I wrote it out. And then I asked myself these questions, which I put up here. And these questions are really important. So after you write out your story, take a few-minute break, take a breather, and then come back and ask yourself, what strengths did I use to get through that tough time? What were those strengths? What quality traits? What attributes? What routines did I form? What really helped me get through that tough time? And when I searched through that tough time, the strengths that came up for me was patience, persistence, and the ability to persevere. And those are some really great strengths that I totally forgot I even had. I forget about patience half the time, right? But when I wrote out this story and I realized that it took me over 8 months to figure out my illness and I kept going and going, I had that patience. I'm going to figure this out. I had the persistence. I just kept going, kept calling, kept searching, and I persevered through it. And when I realized that, it made me realize that no matter how long this goes on, the pandemic and all that uncertainty, I can get through this. I have those strengths, and those strengths that I had 9, 10 years ago are still with me today. And I just kind of needed to be reminded that they are there so I can use them. And everybody has different strengths, skills, abilities, gifts, traits, whatever word you want to use, but remember what they are. And the other thing is also, what routines did you form? Like for me, to get through that, and this is what I did, everybody's done, different things, because I couldn't eat and I was really struggling with the stress, the anxiety, plus starving. I started a meditation routine. Now, we all know meditation is wonderful. I have my clients meditate all the time, but I'm one of those therapists who doesn't always follow their own advice. So, I'd meditate here and there or once or twice a week. But when this hit me and I was in the middle of it, I started a meditation routine every day. Every morning for 10 to 15 minutes, I would meditate. This hit the pandemic, and for me, a lot of other stuff. My husband was an essential worker. I was worried. My daughter was a senior in high school. She lost out on everything. My whole business, was shifting. I had to learn all this new stuff. And when all of that happened, I remember that, what? I did a meditation routine because I rewrote this again and I read through it and I'm like, oh my God, let me do my meditation routine. And I started meditating every morning, just like I did 10 years ago. 10 to 15 minutes, sometimes a little longer, sometimes a little shorter. And I have to tell you, within a few weeks, I noticed such a difference. And if I didn't write out the story, I wouldn't have even remembered how well that worked for me. Because I kind of put that time of my life in a box, like I compartmentalized it. I pushed it aside because it was a tough, tough time for me. But when I pulled it out, as I was even writing the story and writing these questions, I was like, oh my God, I meditated every day. And how much that worked for me. And now I've been doing that for like 6 months throughout this quarantine. And it's probably now a routine that'll stick with me forever. But just remembering, what did I use? How did I get through my past time? Did faith or religion play a role? That might be something as well. And really think about that, because these are the tools that you can use for this current situation or anything that comes your way. Then look through it and say, what did your support system look like? I want you to remember, for us to get through anything, grieving, forgiveness, healing, to work through anything, we need to have a support system. Having a support system and socialization and community is all part of our emotional basic needs. We need to have a sense of acceptance and belonging, which includes that support system. And the key word in the support system with this is, who in my life do I trust and love unconditionally? That is the key word, because unconditionally means that I can be open, I could be vulnerable, I could be my authentic self, not worry about judgment or worry about abandonment. And I know that this person will tell me if I need that extra help. If I'm not handling something in a healthy manner, they will let me know. But they won't abandon me and they won't judge me for it. And that is so important, because we don't have that unconditional, we won't open up, because we'll be afraid of the rejection, the abandonment, the judgment. And we don't want that. So we need those people. And what's really important about this is, for all of us, right, in this situation, we're all grieving. Now, if you've lost somebody, you're absolutely grieving. And I hope no one here has lost anybody. And if you have, I'm so sorry. This has been such a tough time. I can't even imagine. But even if you haven't lost anybody, we're all grieving our pre-pandemic life, our life the way it used to look before all of this happened. And we're grieving stuff like our old routines, our old schedules, our old feelings of socialization, community, being around people the way we used to, go to work every day. And we're even grieving things like, I had a client say to me the other day, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I actually miss sitting on Route 80 traffic. That was my downtime. I would actually get to listen to my podcast and my music, and I get to wind down before I walked in the house. I don't get any of that now. I have no privacy. I have no alone time. I'm always on between work, the kids, their school. It's like a never-ending Groundhog Day. And that is, something that all of us are feeling. So we need that support system. And what does that support system look like personally, but also professionally? Was there somebody that used to go to a counselor, a therapist, a coach? Was it somebody in the corporation, an HR, an EAP person? Was it spiritual, religious, a rabbi, a priest, a minister, whatever it was? So important to know who it is. And then really just searching through and asking yourself, what were the lessons from the past tough situation? And one of my clients actually said it to me this morning. She said, I wrote this out. She goes, a few months ago, and I don't even remember how it got brought up today, but she said, one thing that keeps coming up for me from writing this story is she had a stroke about 20 years ago. It was actually a brain aneurysm that popped. They didn't know she had it. It was genetic, but there was no signs of it beforehand. She was delivering her son. She was in the middle of natural childbirth, and from pushing, it popped the aneurysm. And she ended up getting semi-paralyzed on her left side, and she's a lefty, so she lost all her abilities. And for the next 4 to 5 years after that, she had to go in and out of surgeries and rehab. She couldn't take care of her son. She lost her career. She lost everything. And now it's, almost I think it's 17 or 18 years later. She's doing really well. She's still semi-paralyzed, but she can use her right side. She's learned to eat, talk, walk, do everything again. And she goes, what keeps coming up for me is, I can't believe how far I've come. I can't believe how much I've grown, how much better I am. I can't believe how resilient I am. It's amazing. She goes, I always just thought of myself as a survivor. She goes, which I am. She goes, but when I wrote out the story, I realized I didn't just survive. I thrived. I became a different person, and I've grown. And if I can get through that, I can get through anything you bring on. And if it's a pandemic and it lasts a year or two, let it be. I can do this. And it really actually made me think too, because I was like, it's true. I could get through a year of not eating and swallowing. I could kind of get through anything. And that's the thing. Even if you write out your story, even if you don't remember it, not everything, you'll remember that you've grown. You'll remember that you've gotten lessons from it or aha moments. And you'll also see how resilient you are. And not only that you survived, but you thrived. And that is so important. So you get so much out of writing this lesson. Write it out, use it, and you'll see all those resources and everything you've gained, and you'll be able to use it today. The other part of this slide is what you see on the bottom. And this is about the story you tell yourself when any bad situation happens. And I want you to think of this. Every time a situation happens to us, whether it's this pandemic or anything that happens to you personally, when we think about the situation, two stories come up for us. Just so you know, there's always two sides to every story. Now, this is the thing, each side will be based completely on truth and fact, but one side will be positive and one side will be negative. And you want to be mindful of which story you pay attention to. Now, for us as human beings, it's much easier to focus in on the negative side. So, just to give you that, because we all have what's called a negative bias, which is genetic, it's inherited, everybody has it, but it tends to make us focus in more on the negative, pay attention to the negative. You know, a good way to think about this is, do you ever have a really great day? Like 99% of your day is great, 1%, eh. So maybe, the day was amazing, but you hit traffic, you're running a little late. Maybe your lunch day canceled, something not big, but a little annoying, right? But 99% of your day was great. It's the end of the day. You're about to go to sleep, shut the lights, the TV off, you start evaluating your day like we all do. And what do you focus in on? The 99% that was great or the 1% that was eh? We tend to focus in on that 1%. That's your negative bias. So for us, we have to be mindful. That is the key word here, mindful of which story we choose. Now, this is the good news. We're in control of our mindset. Now, in a situation like this, I've heard from so many clients and students, I feel such a lack of control because, again, we do have a lack of control. We don't know much about this illness. We don't know when the therapeutics will come out, when the vaccine will come out, what the second wave will look like. There's all this uncertainty. And that gives us that feeling of having no control. And that can lead to anxiety and fear and depression. But there are things we have control over, and one of them is our mindset. We are completely in control of our beliefs, our habits, and our patterns. And that's completely up to you. And the other part is you are completely in control of what information you digest, what media you watch, how much of it you get. The same with social media, newspapers, TV, radio, internet. That's all up to you. So I want you to pay attention to which side of the story do you focus on. So using the pandemic for an example, right? Here's the two sides. And I have clients doing both. Somebody just said to me the other day, can't believe we're going through the second wave. I didn't think it would hit till January. It's still nice out. This is happening too early. Europe's closing down. What are they going to do here? The hospitals are starting to fill up. My daughter's school is thinking of totally closing down. What do I do? Absolutely. That's 100% based on truth or fact of the situation. You can hear it from people, see it on the news. Absolutely truth. That's the negative side. On the other side, there's this story. Okay, we knew the second wave was going to hit. We knew it was coming. We're much more prepared. The schools will close down if they need to. My kids will be safe. We have all this great technology. I can work from home. My kids can go to school from home. The doctors, the hospitals, they have way more information. We know what to do. We'll wear our masks. We'll sanitize. We'll get through this. Both sides of the story are 100% true. It's which one do you choose to focus on and put your mind, being mindful of which one you focus on. Again, we tend to go to the negative because that's the easiest for us. So you have to be mindful, which story am I choosing? Now, let's get into a few things about, keeping positive during a crisis. So the first one I put up there is to really think about unplugging and reducing media. Now, this is so important because one of the things we're seeing, and I've been hearing this for months now with the election, even sometimes more than the pandemic, is that when clients get on social media, and one of my clients just said it to me on Monday in a session, she said, this becomes such a place filled with hate and anger, I just can't even be on it anymore. And what I want you to think about is when you watch the news or you read it, you listen to it, you're on your social media accounts, how does it make you feel? And this is the sign. We have what's called the mind-body connection. And our body is also called the pain body because we hold all of our emotions on our bodies. The negativity, the fear, the anger, the anxiety, the uncertainty, the frustration, it all gets on our body. And when you are feeling that stress and anxiety, you'll know it instantly by how it shows up on your body. So you want to ask yourself, where do you hold stress? Common areas. First one is your jaw. When people are stressed and anxious and nervous and fearful, they tend to grind or clench. Others, their whole neck and shoulders and back hurt because you tense up. For others, they get a headache instantly, a migraine. For others, and a client expressed it perfectly, says, I feel like someone's in there wringing a washcloth. But that is the red flag going off saying, this is too much for you. And before it turns into a full blown anxiety or you start getting too overwhelmed, you want to limit how much time you spend in front of these kind of media outlets and think about how's this making you feel. And if you start feeling it on your body, remove it instantly. The other thing to remember with this is one of the things I have all my clients do is at least 30 minutes before bed, remove all the negativity. Don't watch the news. Don't watch anything that's very fearful. Don't get on your social media, anything like that, because it affects how you sleep, if you sleep, what mood you wake up in the morning, and how you dream. So if you are watching the news before bed, it's going to make you very stressed and anxious. So watch it earlier in the day. We're not saying don't be informed. We're just saying don't be inundated by it and don't do it at night before bed. It could really affect how you sleep or even having stressful dreams. So just watch that, make sure you unplug, and also unplugging and reducing media in general, because we're spending so much time in front of a computer, and especially with the Zoom calls or iTeams, whatever you use, where you're just sitting like this and you can't move, it's causing problems with our eyes, our neck, our back. So making sure that you do have breaks from your media. The second thing is for us to go through any tough time or even in life to feel good, we need to have schedule, routine, and consistency across the board, not just we as adults, our kids need it the same as well. So you want to make sure there's still a routine. And for a lot of us, again, we're grieving our past, life and our schedules and our routines and our consistency. And making sure we get at least our morning and our evening routines in place are so important. So I put up here some stuff for both morning and evening, because those are the two most important routines. So I'm going to go over the morning first. So if there's anything in your pre-pandemic life in that routine that you could keep for you and your family, keep it because you're used to it. If there was a certain time that you went to bed, if you read books beforehand, if your kids took showers at night, keep the routine as much as you can. But then there's a few things to add in. So in the morning, one of the first things I tell my clients all the time is make your bed and get dressed. Now, sounds so easy, but this is a military with making your bed. It takes you 30 seconds to a minute to make your bed. But when you make your bed, you feel a sense of accomplishment and pride, which is a positive emotion, which gives us a boost of happiness. So just making your bed starts you on the fresh start. This is I'm starting my day. It signifies that your day started. The next thing is get dressed. So even if you're working from home and no one's going to see you, or if you're like us on Zoom calls, we just put a nice shirt on and leggings and sneakers or whatever you're wearing on the bottom, which I know a lot of us do. Change. Again, it signifies the start of your day. You don't want it to blend in that you can't tell the difference of your day and it becomes like groundhog, and it gets us moving. So make your bed, get dressed, the same for your kids. Now, after that, I always want my clients to do this one question, and I made this question a part of my routine and all my clients, even before the pandemic and hopefully way afterwards. So this question is a very simple question. It's called the magic question. But before you even get out of bed in the morning, just, you just woke up, maybe you're stretching, you're sitting in bed for a minute or two, just ask yourself this simple question. How can I make this a great day? That's all I want you to ask yourself. How can I make this a great day? Now, I don't want you to try and answer it or try to solve it, because if you do that, you'll just be working on autopilot and you're going to try to answer that question the way you always would, which would be mostly like, oh, I got to go to work again. I don't want to get out of bed. I can't believe I'm just going next door. My kids are already up. Whatever it is that's going on in your head, don't do that. Just throw the question kind of out to the universe. So how can I make this a great day? And what happens without you doing a thing is your brain starts looking for solutions and starts working on solving it. And then as you go about your day and you're not even thinking about the question, answers come up. A lot of my clients say it comes up in the shower or when they're eating breakfast, like when you least expect it. And you'll get like, oh, you know what? I forgot I have a longer lunch break today. And you know what? Maybe I'll order in from my favorite place. Or you know what? I have time this morning. I'm going to go to Dunkin' Donuts and get me a coffee instead of making it. Whatever it is, you'll start thinking a little differently. So just throw that question out there, get your brain working in a positive direction. Then the next thing is you want to start your day with something mindful. Now, just, we always hear buzzwords, right? Like meditation, mindfulness, yoga, and they're all great. But just so you know, meditation, yoga, those are all intentional practices of being mindful. Mindfulness itself, just a little bit about it, is the ability to be awake and aware of everything around you in your environment, what's going on, using your senses, but also completely awake and aware to everything that's going on in your head, your thoughts, your mindset, everything that's going on without judgment. So it allows you to be in the moment, in the here and now. And what that does, all of this mindfulness, is it reduces your stress hormone cortisol. It lowers blood pressure. It reduces chronic pain. It helps you sleep better, brings a sense of calm, and brings you to the here and now. Now, why that's so important in the morning is because when you are in your present moment, you are your most creative, your most productive, healthiest, and happiest. So we want to start our days, and especially what we've noticed with the pandemic is the biggest thing to be affected is sleep. So a lot of us are waking up and we're exhausted, we didn't sleep well, we're tense, and that makes for a hard day. So doing something mindful will relax you, calm, and it'll help the day be way more productive. So you want to do one mindfulness technique. And I have 3 different ideas up there. You can pick and choose what works for you. But the few that my clients love is one of the best ways scientifically to get mindfulness is just to go for a walk. So if you can get out there and walk for 10 minutes, that is great. Now, this is the bonus with the weather being nice, which it is, thankfully, right? It's supposed to be all weekend. But when it's nice out, or even while we can until it gets too cold or snowy, there's a bonus out there. Fresh air instantly produces mindfulness, but the sun, the vitamin D is so important because around October, early November is when a lot of us start getting the side effects of like seasonal disorder, the winter blues, where we start feeling that blah from the cold, the shorter days, it gets dark early, the trapped in. Now add that with the pandemic, and it could really feel like very depressing. So going out in the sun, what it does for you is the vitamin D from the sun not only does it, it's great for your bones, but it also helps improve your immune system, just like vitamin C. And even the other bonus is it improves your moods. So just getting out there in the sun gives you a mood boost. And if you can't get out there and you notice you're having a hard time getting in the sun, you can take a vitamin D supplement if you choose. They're everywhere. They're inexpensive, from CVS to Walmart, ShopRite, wherever you want. But if you can go out for a walk, it produces mindfulness. Another thing to do if you like journal writing better is I have my clients do what's called the morning dump. I didn't name it. It's a brain dump. So again, it's just taking out a journal, using pad and pen. You can leave it next to your bed. For about 10 minutes in the morning, you just want to write out everything that's on your mind. You want to release it. Now, this is so important because we're all in a stressful time right now, right? The pandemic, the second wave, the election, seasonal disorder, the holidays coming. It's definitely a stressful time. So when stress is one of those things, just so you know, we can never live without. We're never going to have a stress-free life. But stress itself is not so bad. It's how you manage stress. So if we internalize it and push it down and we don't feel the emotions and release it, then it becomes really unhealthy for us. But by writing, you're getting the release. You're releasing everything that's on your mind and you're getting it out on paper. Now with a free write, what that means is you write whatever's coming up for you. You don't judge it. You don't analyze it. You don't spell check it. You don't grammar check it. You just write it as a release. Now, when you're done with it, you can either keep a journal and you can read, go back to it on and off and read through it and see how far you've come or patterns you developed. You can use it that way, which is very therapeutic. Or a lot of my clients like to do an exercise afterwards that signifies they're releasing the stress. So you can write it out and then rip it up to shreds, throw it away. I have a client who now has a home office, so she has a paper shredder. She puts it right through the paper shredder and just releasing the negativity, pick and choose. The other third way, again, while the weather is nice, is going outside for 5-10 minutes in the morning, bringing your cup of coffee, tea, whatever you drink, sitting outside on the deck, your backyard, whatever it is. And if you can't, the weather's not good, just sitting near like the doors that lead to outside or a window where you can see nature. And all you want to do, and because a lot of us, don't have a lot of time in the morning, bring that coffee or tea, is using one of your senses. You want to connect to nature or even your cup of coffee or tea. So I have chamomile tea here. But when I'm sitting outside, you could do the simplest things. You can hold your mug like I am and just feel the warmth from your coffee or tea. And that's one of your senses. What do you feel? You could bring it up to your nose and smell the aroma of your coffee or tea. And that's using one of your senses. What do you smell? You can, or you don't even need to use your coffee or tea. You can put it down and just look at nature and go, what do I see? The clouds moving, the shapes of the clouds. What do I hear? The birds, the bees, the dogs barking. What do I smell? Somebody barbecuing, the beach, whatever. You can use anything, but just one of your senses sitting outside for 5 to 10 minutes brings you into nature. And you can also just do some deep breathing if you would like. And all a meditative breath is, if you've never done this, and if you have the chance to keep your eyes closed during it, it's even more relaxing. But of course, that's only if you're in a safe space, is that you take a deep breath in through your nose, hold for a second or two, and then release or exhale through your mouth. That is all it is. It's a deep breath in through your nose. You hold for a second or two and exhale through your mouth. And there is no right or wrong or no judgment, but you can take a few deep breaths before you start any of this, or just keeping your eyes closed and deep breathing. Another form of mindfulness is prayer. So some of my clients will pray in the morning. It's up to you. Then for your night routine, really important again to have a night routine, whatever works for you. If you take a warm shower bath to kind of relax you, some people will drink like sleepy time tea, which is chamomile to relax. But I have my clients do these 2 questions, and I put them up on the bottom of the PowerPoint. And they're really important questions because these 2 questions together retrain your brain to go from negative to positive. It's reshifting your brain, and they're really powerful. So the first question is gratitude. And it's very simple. You just want to ask yourself, what are 2 to 3 things that I'm grateful for that happened today? That's the key. You want to look through your day and see the little gifts and blessings and miracles that have happened during your day and really be grateful for them. Now you can write it, you can say it out loud, you can say it in your head, whatever works for you. But what gratitude does, gratitude's like a superpower. It cultivates mindfulness, so it'll help you sleep. And it also cultivates happiness, so it gives you that boost of happiness right before bed, so you're having good thoughts before you put your head on the pillow. And it retrains your brain to start noticing the good in the day. And that's what happiness is. It's perspective. What do you see? What are you noticing? And again, are you noticing the good or are you noticing the bad? The other question that goes with this, and it doesn't matter which one you ask first, is what are 2 to 3 things I did well today? Now that's different for gratitude because you could be grateful for the weather. It was a great cup of coffee. You hit no traffic. You got good parking. But you had no control over that. But what you did well, you have control over. And what that does is totally retrain your brain, because for most of us at night, right before bed, we start evaluating your day, and that's when the rumination comes up and when we get that stress and anxiety, and we focus in on what didn't work. But now we're shifting it to start noticing what we did well. And what that does is it shifts your brain and you start noticing the good in a bad situation, which is resiliency. When you can start noticing the good, even in a bad situation, or you start noticing the purpose behind a painful situation, You've developed resiliency and growth. So these two questions together start really the shifting of what you notice and retraining your brain. Now, the bottom question, what did I do well today, also brings up the positive emotions of accomplishment and pride. So it boosts your happiness. And when you feel a sense of accomplishment and pride, you also feel hope. So those should be part of your night routine. And again, a lot of my clients will use prayer in the morning and then they meditate at night. The choice is yours, but we want to do some mindfulness in the morning and at night and keep our morning and evening routine going. Now, I know I'm going to run out of time, so I just want to touch base on the last one on here, which is, are your basic needs met? And that's really important because when we're in a tough situation, like we are right now, and things are tough, what happens is we put ourselves on the bottom of the priority list. Or as my clients say, should I even be on the priority list? I don't even know if I have time to be on the priority list. But this is the thing. We need to be there, and we need to make sure our basic needs are met. And there's 4 things that are really important, because without these basic needs, we will never feel balanced and healthy. Remember, there's that physical and emotional mental connection. When you don't feel good physically, it affects you mentally and emotionally. And when you're not in a good place mentally and emotionally, it affects you physically. So these are the 4 things you really want to pay attention to. What does your sleep look like? Now, again, this has been the number one thing that has been affected across the board for most of us is sleep. So, we know we're supposed to get 7 to 8 hours, but the truth is, pre-pandemic, we were only getting 4 to 6 hours. The normal American was only getting that. So if you can get 6 hours, cognitively, you're in a good place. And I'll tell you what it exactly looks like. If you do less than 6 hours, after your 3rd night of sleeping less than 6 hours, it's like not sleeping for 24 hours straight cognitively. Your attention span, your focus, your concentration, your memory, your moods, they're all completely off. So 6 hours and we're pretty good. I mean, if you can get more, great, but that's the minimum. Then with diet. Now, just a few things, because we're seeing people use a lot of different like food, caffeine, sugar as coping. And this is the thing. If you notice you're very stressed or anxious, and a time like this, it's very easy for stress to turn into anxiety, because we've been having stress consecutively from weeks to months on end. So it can easily turn to anxiety, fear, nervousness. If you're noticing that, I want you to watch your caffeine and sugar intake, because caffeine and sugar literally make us more restless, nervous, and anxious. Not saying don't have a cookie or a cup of coffee, just be careful and be mindful, not have too much. If you notice you're starting to get depressed, that lonely, that isolation feeling, watch your alcohol, that's a depressant. And again, we're not saying don't have a glass of wine, just be mindful. As for water, people again have been saying they're really, overdoing with their caffeine, making sure you get enough water. And this is the perfect time to kind of shift your water intake. So if you notice in the afternoon, like between 2 and 4, you're getting those like afternoon blues where you're like, you're tired, and usually go for like a caffeinated beverage or a sugary vending machine kind of snack for that energy lift. The odds are you're probably just a little dehydrated. I keep my water here next to my computer because I'm on it all day, and make sure I sip it all day. But in the afternoon, after lunch, and it takes 2 weeks for your body to adjust to the water. So for 2 weeks, up your water intake in the afternoon. Drink 2 full water bottles or water glasses. You don't have to chug them. Just sip them throughout the afternoon. It'll take your body about 2 weeks, but in 2 weeks, you'll have way more energy. And it's just the water, because again, when we dehydrate it, it affects our cognitive skills. And lastly is exercise. So as I said before, our bodies are called the pain body, and we hold all of those negative emotions. The only way out is to move your body. We need to move. So exercise is so important. And here's the exact stat. If you can walk 4 times a week, and this is not a run, not a jog, but just a nice walk 4 times a week for a minimum of 20 minutes, if you could do 30, even better. But 4 times a week, 20 minutes, you get the same benefit as an anti-anxiety pill without any side effects. It's huge. The other thing is every time you move, whether it's a dance party, walking, gym, whatever you do, You produce endorphins, which is your happy chemical. So you want to make sure all your basic needs are met. So important. And lastly, just one thing because of the second wave, physical distance does not mean social distance. And just to tell you, the number one factor of happiness is socialization. So we don't want to isolate. We don't want to lock ourselves in our rooms and not communicate with others. So a few things. If you can reach out to one person a day that's outside of your home and keep that socialization and community going, that would be great. Just, keep up with that. And also during the day in your own home, if you could all meet for dinner as often as possible. I know it's not possible every night, a lot of us work, but getting everybody together to have that community feel, to have those discussions, really important. So keeping social, because physical distance doesn't equal social distance. We need socialization, number one factor of happiness. And the number one factor of depression outside of mental illness is loneliness and isolation. So we really need this.